You get home and you close the door behind you, and for a moment you just stand there, not thinking about anything, not doing anything, just standing in the quiet like you're waiting for something to settle. The conversation wasn't bad. Nobody was rude. Nobody said anything wrong. You're not upset. You checked. You ran back through the whole thing and there's nothing to point to, nothing to name. And yet, something behind your eyes. Not quite a headache. More like a pressure that wasn't there 2 hours ago. A flatness in your chest where there was energy before you left. You sit down and you don't get up. And the evening you had planned, the thing you were going to do, the person you were going to be tonight, it just doesn't happen. You tell yourself you're tired. You tell yourself you're just sensitive. Just one of those people who needs more time to recover. And maybe you've been telling yourself that for years. But here's the thing. What happened in that conversation wasn't nothing. There's a name for it. Actually, there are several names, and by the time I'm done showing you all of them, you're going to understand exactly where your energy went, and why it keeps going there, and why the most confusing part is that it often happens with people you genuinely like. And the last one I'm going to show you, the last one is the one that's going to be hardest to hear. Not because it's about someone terrible, because it's about something you do, automatically, without anyone asking you to. To anyone watching, it looked like a normal conversation. Two people talking. Nobody fought. Nobody was unkind. You smiled at the right moments. They seemed fine when you left. The whole thing probably looked like nothing from the outside, the kind of interaction that wouldn't make it into any story you'd tell. But your body logged something different. Think of your attention as a resource. Not infinite, not free, an actual resource that moves. And in certain conversations, it only moves in one direction. You give it. It doesn't come back. The conversation ends, and you've spent something you can't immediately replace, and you walk to your car running on less than you arrived with. There's a concept in psychology called cognitive depletion, the idea that self-monitoring, social adjustment, and emotional management are not passive experiences. They cost processing power, real, measurable energy. And the part that most people miss is that you can perform all of that work completely silently, in a conversation that sounded totally pleasant without ever raising your voice or feeling a single obvious thing. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between a conversation that was hard and a conversation that felt fine. It reads the effort underneath. It knows what you were doing even when you didn't. You weren't drained because you're antisocial. You paid for something. And nobody handed you a receipt. You probably have a specific face in your mind before I even finish describing this first one. You're at dinner, maybe a restaurant you like, candles, the sound of other people's conversations moving like water around you. And across from you is someone you've known for years, someone you care about, and they're talking. They've been talking for 40 minutes. You know this because at some point around the 20-minute mark you glanced at your water glass and tried to remember the last time they asked you something, a question, about you, about your week, your thoughts, your actual experience of being alive. And you came up empty. So you kept listening. You asked follow-up questions. You made the sounds and shapes of engagement, the nods, the yeah, totally, the small laugh in the right place, because that's what you do. Because somewhere along the way it became automatic. And here's the thing nobody talks about. Listening is not passive. Real listening, the kind where you're tracking, engaging, generating responses, managing the flow of a conversation, is work. It's labor with no hourly rate. And when it only moves in one direction, when you're the one always generating the attention and they're the one always receiving it, the asymmetry has a cost. Call it the one-way current. It doesn't feel hostile. It just feels like a conversation where you disappeared. That exhaustion isn't you being antisocial. It's the bill for a transaction that was never going to be even. This next one is quieter, which is why it costs more. You're on a phone call with someone close to you, someone who matters, someone whose problems you take seriously. They're going through something, and you want to be there for them. You are there for them. You listen, you respond, you offer the right things at the right moments. But about halfway through the call, something shifts. They're not just telling you what's happening anymore, they're cycling. The same fear, the same story, the same question that doesn't want an answer, just a witness. around and around, and you stay, because you love them. And because leaving would feel like abandonment, even though nobody asked you to stay, even though part of you registered an hour ago that there was nothing more you could actually do here. What you were doing on that call wasn't just listening, you were holding something, absorbing something. What actually happens is that another person's unresolved emotional weight transfers, partially, into your nervous system, and you carry it home. And it sits there, running like an app you didn't open. Not sad, not angry, just heavy in a way that doesn't have a clear source. You weren't wrong to feel it. You were holding something real. You're having what feels like a deep conversation. Real sharing. The kind you don't get to have that often. And there's warmth in it. You feel close to this person. You feel seen. You feel like something real is happening between you. But a few hours later, sitting in your car in the parking garage, hands on the wheel, not quite ready to start the engine, you notice something. You shared a lot. You opened a lot of rooms in yourself that you don't usually open. And somehow, and this is the part that takes a minute to land, somehow they didn't. They responded to your sharing with more questions about you. They reflected your vulnerability back at you, skillfully, warmly, in a way that felt like reciprocity but was actually closer to invitation. And you kept going. Because it felt like connection. Because it had the texture and warmth of connection. What it actually was is something more like a one-way excavation. You were the one being uncovered. You left the conversation more exposed than they did, more empty in the specific way that comes from giving something private away. That's not a betrayal. They may not have even known they were doing it. But the cost was real. Now it gets more personal. Think about someone in your life, maybe a family member, maybe a coworker, maybe a friend you've had for years, someone whose mood you monitor the second you walk into the room, not consciously, just automatically. The way you'd check the weather before you decide what to wear. You scan them. You read the temperature of their silence. You adjust your energy, the volume of yours, the brightness of yours, based on what you see. You choose your words 3 seconds before you say them, so the landing is softer than it needs to be. And you do all of this without anyone asking you to, without anyone noticing you're doing it, without the conversation ever looking like anything other than normal. Psychologists have a term for this ongoing, low-level self-censorship that happens around emotionally unpredictable people. Ambient emotional labor. The word ambient is important. It means it's running all the time. Not just in the hard moments, but in the easy ones too. The casual ones. The Tuesday ones. You are managing the mood, managing the silence, managing the version of yourself that was safe to show. Not because they demanded it, not because they expected it, but because somewhere along the way, it became automatic. And automatic things don't feel like work, but they are. That's the performance toll. You pay it with your presence, and by the end, there's less of you than there was at the start. Everything before this was building to this. This last one is the one I made this video for, because it doesn't look like a cost at all. It looks like caring. You're at a group dinner, family maybe, or a close group of friends, 8 people around a table, plates of food, the comfortable chaos of multiple conversations happening at once. And from the outside, you look like you're having a good time. But here's what's actually happening inside you. Some part of your attention, some quiet, vigilant part, is running a constant background scan of the entire room. Who seems left out? Whether that tension between those 2 people is going to surface. Whether the person at the end of the table is having a good time or just performing having a good time. Whether the energy needs redirecting, whether someone needs drawing out, whether you should say the thing that lightens the mood or hold back because it might land wrong. You are not relaxing, you are working. And nobody knows, because you're good at it, and because you've been doing it so long that you've mistaken the fluency for ease. But fluency and ease are not the same thing. This is the one that exhausts you most in rooms full of people you love. Not because they're depleting you, but because your nervous system never got the signal that it was safe to stop monitoring. You stay on alert the whole time. And then you drive home and wonder why you feel like you ran 8 miles when all you did was sit at a table and eat pasta. That low, flat feeling behind your sternum after a night with people you care about, that's not confusion. That's the cost of staying on. The kind of tired that doesn't want to sleep, just wants to stop. Here's the thing I want you to sit with. These costs aren't all about who you were with. Not all of them. Some of them, most of them, by the time you get to the last two, are about who you become in those conversations. The version of yourself that monitors and translates and manages and performs and holds and absorbs all of it simultaneously, all of it silently, in a conversation that looked, from the outside, like nothing. You were never just talking. You were doing 5 other things at the same time, and none of them had names, and nobody was keeping track, and so, they didn't count. They just cost. Nobody stole from you. It was just never refunded. And here's the quiet thing underneath all of this. Most of the people in these conversations have no idea. The one who talks and never asks, they're not calculating. The friend you held on the phone, they didn't intend to transfer anything. The room full of people you love, they don't know you're monitoring. This is not a list of people who have taken from you deliberately. This is a map of what it costs to be someone who pays close attention in a world that moves fast and notices little. You've been paying a tax you didn't know existed. Once you can see where the cost is coming from, something shifts. You stop wondering if you're broken. You stop thinking the exhaustion is a character flaw. Naming it doesn't solve it. But not naming it meant you were carrying it alone, in the dark, without even the small relief of knowing what it was. Remember where I started, sitting with the door closed, standing in the quiet, waiting for something to settle. That moment makes sense now. That was the end of something that took more than it looked like it took. If any of this names something you've been carrying, just one of those 5, drop a comment. Tell me which one. You don't need to explain it. Just the number, or one word for the person. That's enough. If this channel feels like the kind of place that finally says the thing, subscribe. That's what we're here for. You've been paying it for years. You don't have to stop. But now you'll know.